Okay, yeah. Welcome back to the afternoon session for today's event. We are glad to have you back. I hope you had a very good lunch just now, or maybe some of you had a very quick lunch. Thank you for still being with us, for those of you who were with us this morning. Okay, and for those of you who just joined us, welcome to this session. Okay, before I continue introducing the next speaker, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, at all, please type it into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Okay, because so we leave the chat to whatever exclamation you want to have. Okay, so remember, any questions that you have, please type it in the Q&A so that at the end of the session, which will be a 35-minute to 40-minute session, I will address the questions to the speaker. Okay. Right. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the next speaker. The next speaker, Hafez Zainuddin. I've met him I think in 2017, about 4 years ago. The first time I met him, I was thinking, whoa, this guy, cool dude, cause like frizzy hair and mustache. So he reminds me of the fine artists. And yeah, he is very creative person. So yeah, that's why he, looks like the artist. He is currently now a lecturer at UTAR, Universiti Tunku Abdul Rahman, and he teaches 3D animation. Incidentally, from the same faculty I come from, which is the Faculty of Creative Industry. And currently, he's also doing his PhD with us, his postgraduate studies. And his area of study is that he is working on the reconstruction project of an old town to preserve its memories and heritage. So this project focuses on the community engagement, which incorporates the local museum participation in the creative process. He has 14 years of teaching experience. He's been teaching in the academic line for a very long time at local higher education. And prior to his involvement in academia, he has worked for about 8 years in the industry. His passion is in restoration, upcycling, adaptive reuse of old houses, building components, reminiscing and visualizing the past, and to represent them through technologically assisted creative methods. So I would like to invite Hafez now. Hafez, are you there with us? Would you like to share your screen?
Yes. Yeah. So can you hear my voice, Miss Claire?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Miss Claire. Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for spending your time to attend and to listen to my presentation today. Okay, so as Miss Claire has explained just now, this project is actually my PhD project. I initiated this project back in 2018, and I formalized it to become a PhD project in 2019, right before the pandemic. Okay, so but for today's session, I will be focusing my presentation towards the theme of the of our conference today, which is storytelling. Yeah. So through the presentation, I will try to tell the story of my journey as an initiator of an art project, and as well as the story of my hometown, Kajang. Yeah. So and then there will be one more additional component that I will add on, which is the method on how we can enhance the storytelling element in such project like my project, the virtual reconstruction project. Okay, so without further ado, yeah, okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so this is the title of my project, Narrating the Memories of Place, a virtual reconstruction project of the historical town of Kajang. All right, so yes, Kajang is my hometown. I was born here. Okay, so to explain about this, I think let me just go straight to the video. Yeah. Okay, so this is an art project, a project to construct a virtual world and to recreate the past using low-cost technology to preserve the town's history and through a local museum and community's involvement in the creative process. The virtual town will provide a mental time travel experience to users through a reconstructed historical event from the past, simulating episodic memories. Okay, so basically these are the reasons why Kajang town was chosen. It's not just because it is my hometown, because there are some pressing issues to be given attention to in terms of the threat of the threat that the heritage and history community is facing in Kajang town currently. Okay, and then according to the book Kuala Lumpur at War by Barber and On 2012, they describe Kajang as a quintessential small Malayan town, a perfect example of how a pre-war Malayan town should look like, due to the fact of the multiracial community living together here in the old town. Okay, so basically the project will work like this. So one area of the old Kajang town, which is called Section 1, the earliest section developed by the British colonial government back in 1898. So this area is the area that I have selected. And then with the help of geolocational information, with the help of my students, myself, with the help of my students, we developed this, what we call a template or a skeleton of the town. So the geolocational information is useful to maintain, to ensure the scale and proportion is accurate. Oops, sorry. Sorry, that's a... Okay, sorry, wait, yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, so basically, community participation will take place in, oh, sorry. Okay, so the community members, the participants of this project will contribute in this project by contributing 3D digital models. Okay, so the main town, skeleton of the town, which has been developed, will be furnished by the participants, okay, by adding in digital 3D models until the completion of the town. But the creation of the 3D model is upon negotiation, and then it will be based on specific period of time. For this particular project, 2 specific period of time will be chosen based on some historically significant events. All right. Okay, so novel, authentic cultural objects that belongs to the town, that makes up the identity of the town, are the ones which will be highlighted upon. Okay, besides other generic urban models. Okay, so these 3D models will be developed from series of workshops which will be provided to the participants. So 3D modeling works will be done through traditional 3D modeling method. Okay, since the project is meant to be a low-cost project, I do not intend to utilize any other additional technologies, for example, like photogrammetry or 3D scanning, because those technologies will involve additional costs to purchase equipments. And then finally, these virtual, these 3D models will be brought upon into a game engine. Okay, for this particular project, I'll be using Unreal Engine, okay, in which a higher level of fidelity, real-time rendering, and a much realistic lighting and ambience can be achieved. So higher level of realism can be achieved and can be experienced through an immersion into the virtual world with higher level of realism on the materials and textures. Okay, so with the help of my students, we have developed a template, a prototype template, okay, which will serve as the skeleton of this project, and it will be further refined soon by the participants of this project with more models to be included. Okay, so on a personal view, right, I see this research, the way I see this research, I see the subject matter, I see Kajang as a place which is more than a location that is meaningful in some way. Okay, so a small village located about 6 kilometers from the old town is the place where I grew up. Whenever I try to explain about this place where I was from, I am always reminded of Lat, the most celebrated Malaysian cartoonist, through his iconic work, The Kampung Boy, 1979. When Lat recalled the first time leaving his village to live in a bigger city, it was at the very last paragraph of this comic where he emotionally penned, "I couldn't tell for sure whether the folks town I'm going to meet will know will know my kampung when I mention the name. It was so small, people are so few. But I love it so much. Its rivers, its trees, the quiet houses, and my friends." Okay. So Kajang started as a marketplace back in the 1860s where goods and products were exchanged. Exploration of tin mine had been a main attraction in pulling migrants from Indonesia and China. Through tin mining, though tin mining have been the first industry in Kajang, the rubber plantation industry is regarded as to be the one that revolutionized the economy of Kajang town with the establishment of the Kindersley Brothers company in the mid-1890s. And the first brick of shop houses were built in 1890s. Much of the dark histories of Kajang began during the beginning of World War II. It was not until the end of the war, the increased stress in intercommunal relations happened. These simmering tensions would boil over in Kajang in the period of political vacuum that followed in the next coming years. Okay, so the growth of the inhabitants in Kajang happened around 1980s due to the shortage of homes in KL City and Petaling Jaya, and economic growth caused property developers to come to Kajang and acquire land, rubber plantation, and turning them into residential areas. So today, many commercial high-rise buildings are developed and about to be developed in Kajang. Okay, so this is the local museum. Okay, it's called the Kajang Heritage Center. Okay, the man behind the Heritage Center, the museum, is Mr. Lee Kim Sim, who is the founder and the director of the museum. This former science teacher developed an interest in documenting Kajang's history after he left his teaching profession in '96. Mr. Lee dedicated his retirement years working to preserve the few heritage buildings left in Kajang, including the temples and other places of worship, administrative buildings, and pre-war shop lots. So the idea of him setting up this museum was after he realized that many senior citizens who were familiar with the origins and history of Kajang has passed away, while the historical relics that belong to them has gone missing. He then took it to himself to document Kajang's history by doing research at the National Archive and visiting villages around Kajang to talk to senior citizens and collect relevant photographs and documents. Sadly, okay, so that's the main point now. So the urgency, the need to preserve and digitize the memories and heritage of Kajang town become more pressing today. In year 2020 itself, series of unexpected events happened. And it resulted to a huge loss to the heritage and history community in Kajang. Three prominent figures in Kajang history passed away. First, Mr. Vijay, a local historian. He wrote the book Kajang and Its Surround. He passed away in April 2020. This was followed by Mr. Lau, a local traditional tinsmith, the last of its kind in this district. Mr. Lau was the owner of Kajang's oldest operating tinsmith and metal business. His business first opened in 1935, making it the only business with roots that could be traced back to the early tin mining and rubber plantation industry in Kajang. And finally, in May 2021, Mr. Lee, the founder and curator of Kajang Heritage Center, passed away. He dedicated his life to the preservation of history and heritage of Kajang. Now, this has definitely given a huge blow to my research. Nevertheless, okay, it still needs to go on. Museum is still there, even though Mr. Lee is not there anymore. But fortunately, the Kajang Heritage Center has got good activists that could take over Mr. Lee's role. So, in short, so this is the information, basic information about this project. Okay, so two different time frames will be chosen and recreated. 1900s concerning the early establishment of the town, and mid-1940s. Very critical period during the last years of Japanese occupation in Malaysia, and then after the Japanese left, leaving Malaya in a power vacuum period. So it's an interesting period to be recreated and to look at. So the area that has been selected, the section 1 area just now, okay, size is approximately less than 1 kilometer radius, consisting of 70 pre-war shop houses, post office, and a Buddhist temple. Besides that, other urban elements like vegetations, vehicles, and other urban objects. Participatory art. Sorry. Okay, so I embrace the concept or the philosophy of participatory art for this particular project. So this is how I did my explanation on participatory art. Participatory art has made its way into the contemporary art scene since at least the Futurist and Surrealist era in the early 1900s. It is exemplified by movements such as the fluxes and happenings in the 60s and 70s. The rise of the internet and the opening up of the media production
in what referred to as participatory culture has in fact resulted in tremendous bursts of media created and shared online by willing but unpaid users. Nam June Park's Participation TV is considered by many as one of the oldest interactive artworks, in which viewers are invited to manipulate images on television by using a powerful magnet. This democratizing principle has also been influential in the development of design thinking and emergence of the open source movement. Participatory art challenges the traditional role of the artist. It redefines the conventional function of the public, turning them from passive receivers into engaged producers.
So participatory art basically gives that meaning of artists do not work alone anymore. There's a contribution or active involvement by participants, audience, or spectators. So recruitment of participants needs to be recruited for this project. It will be done through conventional poster invitation, sent online and offline, targeting educational institution first, okay, international schools with the ones which has got 3D modeling subjects offered in their syllabus, okay, and other higher learning institutions. Okay, so workshops that will be included in this project, okay, can be divided into two main elements. One is the cultural and artistic part, and the other one, the second one is the technical part, where we deal mainly with 3D modeling and game engine. Okay, so the process of cultural mapping, okay, which is included in one of the workshop, okay, is an important one. Now, cultural mapping is among the artistic content and methods to be included in the workshops. Janet Pillay, a prominent artist and activist in Malaysia, says that cultural mapping is a systematic approach to recording and presenting information that provides integrated picture of the cultural character, significance, and working of place. She suggests that the point is not merely to map cultural artifacts and practices within an area, but to understand how they work together to create a place. Cultural mapping is active and participatory, seeking to some extent to embed those involved in this project within the Kajang areas and communities. Oops, sorry. Okay, so through cultural mapping, art making process is expected to happen. Okay, so around the town gives inspiration, gives ideas, gives references to participants. So the process includes historical photo elicitation, reminiscing old photos, looking for reference, negotiating the content, and having a constant focus group discussion to discuss on particular situation, atmosphere, events that happen in specific period of time. So these are examples of how art making process happens from historical photo elicitation. We have So cultural mapping project is something that we have done in a small scale together with my students. We managed to meet Mr. Lee and gain some valuable information, but it needs to be done again in a bigger scale with a bigger participant soon in the future. Okay, so some of the examples and results of artworks, drawings, sketches produced during throughout the cultural mapping process, and then finally the output of the virtual environment itself. So eventually, the prototype will be exhibited, of course, in the museum itself. But this time around, there are two main approach of exhibition: on-site exhibition, physical exhibition, and also online exhibition. Due to the nature of this prototype being a digital content, means it can be embedded with certain procedure onto the web and became available online, which means users can experience, use, or utilize this prototype remotely from home. But besides the digital prototype virtual environment itself, of course, the artworks produced from the art making process, cultural mapping will be exhibited as well. Okay, now this is my final slide. So this is where I explained earlier about finding ways to enhance storytelling in this virtual environment. So virtual world are meant to be interactive. When we are immersed in a virtual world, we have complete control of the character and the camera. And in games or virtual world, designers need to create animation that respond to gameplay or storytelling, or even mixing them both together. So the animation created in a virtual world or in a game can help to translate what the player or user would like to do in the world, as well as to help to support the story. So in my quest to search for an animation method, okay, applicable to the characters, human characters in the virtual world, okay, I came across mocap, motion capture. I mean, motion capture is not a new technology. It has been around for quite some time, for a few decades. But the technology used to be very expensive. So the item that I want to highlight here is the emergence of open source culture in today's digital realm. So open source, the notion of product, usually digital product, designed to be publicly accessible. Anyone can see, modify, distribute, and use the code or the model or the object. Open source software are developed in collaborative way, relying on peer review. It's built by community, and it's usually cheaper, more flexible, more longevity. Okay, so motion capture data is the process of recording movement or objects. But this data today, nowadays, has become very affordable, cheap, okay, and highly available and it's available for free. So this data of animation is transferable easily to any 3D characters, 3D models built. But of course, it's not straightforward. There are adjustments that needs to be done. But the type of animation that we are able to achieve is more graceful through motion capture data. And today, in digital open source community, motion capture data is available for free. So this is how one way we can utilize open source data in order to reduce the time that we are going to use or spend to animate. Earlier this year, Unreal Engine released the MetaHuman Creator. MetaHuman Creator is a cloud-based app, open source, digital human creator. One can create high fidelity, highly realistic human, customizable, okay, complete with rig, okay, animatable like that. And it's up to the designers to choose the type of ethnicity, the type of wrinkles and skin colors, skin tones, hair, everything from skin, hair to clothes, everything is customizable and can be sent out, import and export to any 3D animation software or game engine. So this definitely will enhance the storytelling in a virtual world, but still artistic skills and touch and experience is still needed. Okay, it's not something that can be done straightforward, but steps are getting much easier to do. If it used to take weeks to build one human model, now it takes lesser time than that. Okay. So I think, yeah, that's about it. That's all the content of my presentation. So to conclude, okay, in terms of storytelling, right? Recreating, narrating memories, turning them back into a storytelling platform, in this case, a digital platform. For me, a person who belongs to, or any person who belongs to my generation, I think we are fortunate enough to be able to experience such technology today. And also at the same time, we have opportunity to interact or to keep in touch with our ancestors, right? Our grandmothers, my generation, my grandmother survived World War II. They experienced World War II firsthand. I remember being when I was young, when I was a kid. I always look forward to listen to my grandmother's Japanese occupation stories, because it's so exciting the way she described the atrocities of the Japanese army, how brutal, how merciless, how evil they are. The way she describes the way they speak, the way they behave, the way they walk. I always have that dream and fantasy. How nice if I could turn back time, if I could be in that moment of time, so that I can experience what my grandmother experienced. Even though it's disturbing, even though it's dark, yeah, memories could be dark, and sad and disturbing, but it is something that we have to embrace if we are into, if we want to look seriously into history and heritage. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Okay, thanks, Hafez. Okay, we are going to address a few questions. Some questions are from me, but I will raise the questions that's from our attendees first. This comes from Eva Tan. She wants to know, do you use high definition rendering on your project? Of course, if you do, what do you mean by high definition rendering? Okay, maybe for us who are not so familiar with 3D. So do you use high definition rendering in your project, this particular project?
Okay. Wait, yeah, let me share a video. Okay. All right. So there's a slight difference in what is being built in a game engine and what is being built in a 3D animation software. 3D animation, so if we produce animation in a 3D animation software, we have to do the rendering. We have to do the render setting and everything. But for this virtual environment, right, creating an interactive environment with a different platform, a game platform, the rendering system is different. It's real-time rendering. But of course, there are issues to that when you are dealing with this kind of materials, real-time rendering materials and lightings and all. Things seems to be will tend to become very heavy. All your file, your model, your mesh. So that's why it is highly important for us to, during the beginning stage, the 3D modeling stage, it is highly important for us to determine the poly count, to make sure the mesh lines and the structure of our model is not too complicated, okay, and it's not problematic. There are ways that we can apply to check our model. But yeah, there's back to the question just now, high definition rendering. Not really. We don't really do rendering in game engine. We do it if we are to produce conventional animation, but it comes with a price lah. Yeah, your computer spec has to be good, yeah, in order to run a game engine. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is, this comes from an anonymous attendee.
Okay.
This person has asked, what open source is your ultimate go-to? I think you were talking about some open sources just now, right? So what is your go-to open source? Do you have a place? As in, like, I think, is it images that you go to for the sources? I think that's what the question is.
Can you repeat the question again, Ms. Claire?
What is your open source ultimate go-to, as in which source and open source, I think, for your materials or whatever,
okay.
online? Do you have a particular place you go to?
Right now, I don't have a specific open source source or platform that I use solely. I have a few platforms that I look at, but I mean, open source is something that is around us, whether we realize it or not. The apps that we use, all those are open source. But in this case, the open source that I would commonly what's the word? I would frequently use those that has got good database of 3D models, like 3D SketchUp, 3D Warehouse, which belongs to Trimble SketchUp, right? And then, MetaHuman Creator, that is a good open source platform as well. And then Sketchfab, another good open source platform for 3D models, interior objects, and also exterior objects. But in building a local, if we are to build a local environment, right, a local place, there are a lot of objects that we need to build on our own, because it's specific to our country, like, the type of trishaw or rickshaw that we have is quite unique. It's different from the ones in other countries, for example. So we have niche specific object, novel cultural objects that belongs to a specific town, making up the identity. So those objects are the ones that we need to identify and try to model them accurately. Artifacts, yeah.
Okay, we have another technical question. This person, Yulu, I think could be your student, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Yulu, Luyu.
Ask whether learning Blender apparently is becoming more popular. So as a 3D artist, do you see a future in this software? Is it worth learning Blender?
Yeah, it's worth learning. I do agree with Luyu. Yes, if I am still young, I would learn it. Even now, also I would love to learn it if I have enough. But yes, it's true. Blender is getting more and more popular. It's open source. It's free. Okay. Programmers can, for programmers who are well experienced, they can customize, they can tweak the software to create shortcuts or fasten up their work. Yeah. So yes, Blender is a recommended software, and in fact, yeah, we are in this department, we are trying to request for Blender to be installed.
Okay, the next question asks, for example, you mentioned that you use game engines to design the interactive environment, right? So what game engine applications do you use?
I'm using Unreal Engine. The popular ones usually used by researchers, right? These two, Unity and Unreal. Both have its pros and cons. I'm not going to cite on any brands at this moment, but the reason why I chose Unreal is, I think, because I'm familiar with it. I've been experimenting, working with it since for quite some time, so I'm familiar with it. But other game engines are as good as that one. Every game engine will have its own advantages and disadvantages. It depends on what you want to do, what you want to build. Yeah.
Okay. In line with the game question, because I have my own question, I was wondering, are you thinking of possibly, or are you currently working with game developers where you create like a virtual game that involves maybe the Kajang town as part of the way you can promote our country, your state, are you thinking of that possibly as a project in the future, or have you already started thinking about that?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I would love to see one day this prototype turns into a fully functioning game, right? But of course, at this moment, I don't have the expertise. So that's why participatory element is very important. Collaborative approach is very important, so that we can have people from different area of specialization, those from science, from computer science, from arts, from design, can work together and create something meaningful to the community and can give back to the community.
Okay. This question is from Lorna Omar.
Okay.
She asked, do you see this being a medium that can be used by museums and heritage organizations so that we can all step back in time? Or do you already know that there are museums or heritage organizations who are already using this medium, 3D animation?
Okay. Okay, that is actually one of my one of the problem statement that I highlighted in my research. The adaptation of virtual technology in local museums is seen to be very slow, and it's mainly focused on bigger cities. Yeah.
Do you think it's because of the cost of doing something like that?
I want to disagree with that because in today's situation, it's not as expensive as it used to be. And yeah, like how I highlighted, right? We have open source platform nowadays where we can acquire things for free, software for free, data for free. But yes, of course, at the very basic level, we need to have a good machine, yeah, a good computer. That's the first step. But other devices are not. I don't think we really need additional equipments to build a virtual world other than the headgear, wearable headgear.
Okay,
and
so
other than that, okay, just.
So maybe to you, it's more of trying to convince smaller towns to buy into the idea without having to deal too much with the cost, right?
Yeah. I mean, that would be that I can understand that is one of the main factor behind the non-adaptation of such technology, because it's expensive to a lot of people. But yeah, there are ways to do it in a more economic way, although we might not be able to achieve the kind of result like how a professional studio does. But as long as that the environment is navigatable, users can feel immersed into it, can feel surface and materials and objects clearly. I think that is good enough for a community project. Because this is not a commercial project, it's a community project. So we can't expect the kind of visuals that we see in games.
Yeah, okay, which comes to my question. For example, you mentioned a lot about your students helping you with this project. So these students that you're referring to, are they students that comes from your current university or your previous universities? Or are they just students like you mentioned earlier? It could be students from high schools who maybe have the software, students who want to learn by joining this project. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Students from UTAR, my own students, I approach them then and some of the models were built in their assignments.
Okay.
But I do notify my students, okay, that this will be a participatory project, okay. There will be a certain, not to say tokenistic reward, but there will be ownership to be given, rights to be given, collective rights, yeah, to any contributors of to this virtual world. The contribution will be recognized.
So if anybody wants to join your project, right? I mean, like there could be some geeks out there who are interested in 3D, who could just be in secondary school. If they wanted to join your projects, like, so how do you promote it to them? Like you said, it's a community project, so you need the participation from the community, right?
Yes.
So can anyone just come and tell you, hey, I want to learn about this, and can I join your project? Or
okay, so in participant recruitment, there are categories. So categories of participants are divided from the co-creator until the receptive, the most passive participant until the most active participants. So based on their level of skills, their level of enthusiasm, okay, I will put them into specific categories and see how they go on. If they are consistent, they are good results coming out from that particular participants. Of course, I will try to persuade them to stay with this project until the end.
Okay, there's one more question about software again.
Okay.
The people here love software. This is from Elba. He asked, movies such as Final Fantasy, Beowulf, what is your opinion in utilizing software such as human beta in replacing talents, human being in movies or even in games?
Oh, okay. That is kind of subjective. It's like oh, it's like okay, it's a tricky question. Some people are fine with that, but what was the name that she mentioned just now? Human beta.
Elba asked you, human beta is the software replacing human beings in movies or even in games. I think we see a lot of that nowadays, right?
Yeah. Yes, we see a lot of perfect development of digital human, right? Final Fantasy and all those. But it seems that I don't know, somewhat human want that imperfection, right? When our face is too balanced, it doesn't look natural. Then we tend to not like it. Okay, it has that artificial element. I honestly haven't seen how human beta result looks like.
Okay. Okay, one more question from another anonymous person. How do you see the future of this type of animation?
Wow, future.
So do you see a future in this type of animation?
Yeah, but it's something that I have actually asked myself also before. Since now everything is becoming very available, very easily available, okay, where do we stand in now? Where do we creative people stand in now when everything is pretty much ready-made? So it's back to narration. Yeah? So what is our narration? What do we narrate? What is our storytelling? Okay, it's back to that. Okay? The content of it. How it comes out to be like, okay, that one is very subjective. Sometimes technology has influence behind that. But yeah.
Okay. Okay, on a very personal level, because I'm quite interested in this. You know, you mentioned your quaint little kampong or village that you used to live in. Is it still there? Is your local kampong there? Is your kampong still?
Yeah.
It still exists, no development over it. Okay, and all this
only at my particular area. Yeah.
Oh, okay, and all these architectural buildings that you've been showing us the model of, and then the top views, is it still existing? Or is it just partially disappeared?
You mean the shop houses?
Yes, the shop houses. Yes.
Yeah. The original one still there. But there's a second section. Section 1, most of the buildings are still intact. Section 2 are partially demolished. Yeah. Oh. So yeah, it's partially demolished.
Okay, so that's why you're trying to recreate the whole thing again. So we have a legacy. Right.
Yes, correct. A legacy. Okay. Yes.
That's very noble of you to start this project. Okay, anyway, we have to end soon. I will end with the last question. This is from Anthony, our very own Anthony. He wants to know what skills would a person need to have or to develop before they can start a project like yours.
Okay.
What skills do they need or existing already, or what do they need to develop in order to start a project like this?
maybe my answer, the answer that I gave, maybe other 3D artists might not agree, but yeah, to me, the essential skills, how we observe things, our understanding on perspectives, scaling, proportions, those are the fundamental things that we need. And then 3D modeling itself, it's a craft. It's like how we sculpt, okay, how we build something from wood, from a box, right? So there are methods of chamfering, extruding, and all those. So those fundamental skills in sculpting, and then some fundamental knowledge in drawing. Yeah. So these two. To me, that's my personal opinion.
Basically, your opinion is go back to basics, lah. So these are skills all of us.
Yes, traditional.
Before we start going into our various specific areas.
Yes.
I missed one of the questions. I think this one should be quite fast. So which site do you go to first? Your first go-to site when you go online? Which is your first go-to site?
Oh.
Any site you go to? You know, when you get onto Google, for example, do you go straight somewhere?
Epic Games, I guess.
Oh, games. Okay,
Games is the homepage for Unreal Engine. Yeah. Usually I will go there to see any new updates.
Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, thank you, Hafez,
Thank you very much.
sharing with us your preservation things, because that is very interesting to all of us. All right. So I think
thank you very much.
With this, we will end this session. Next round, we are going to have our very own Anthony Miranti, who is going to be presenting. He will be introduced by Ezati. Okay, thanks. So please stay for the next presentation. Thank you.